The alien women were laughing at Earth's defenses until he walked onto the battlefield. The Darelian dropship descended toward the Martian military installation like a glass fang slicing the red sky. Its engines hissed iron vapor into the thin atmosphere, dispersing in geometric plumes that shimmered in pulses of violet and green. Inside, 7 warrior women lounged in harnessed suspension pods, speaking to one another in the sharp metallic cadence of their language, something between song and insult. Did you see the landing pad? I've seen better construction in fungal colonies. Do they still use oxygen to breathe? That's so flammable. Laughter clinked through the chamber like crystal shards. One of them tapped her helmet, zooming in on a Martian banner fluttering limply in the dust. Look, they still use cloth. Cloth, Valira, I thought that was just a legend. The one addressed as Valira didn't smile, she rarely did. Her ears twitched once, slow and deliberate like blades aligning, and she fixed her gaze on the data feed blinking across her visor. Be grateful for their simplicity, she said. It makes the joint exercises more amusing, like practicing against wind-up toys. Do wind-up toys bleed? One of the others asked, cracking her knuckles. Only if you're bored enough, Valira replied. They touched down with a metallic sigh. The bay doors unsealed and opened onto the compound's landing field, where a collection of Earth's highest-ranking officers stood arranged like slightly confused chess pieces. One of them attempted a formal salute, but seemed to forget halfway through which hand was appropriate. Ah, the welcoming committee, murmured Irani, the youngest of the group, her voice dripping with amusement. Should we bow, or is that too aggressive for their spines? Just don't sneeze, said another, their skulls might implode. Valira stepped forward, her boots meeting the Martian soil with a subtle thunk, and scanned the faces ahead. Most of the humans looked mildly intimidated, except for one tall, square-shouldered, and wearing the expression of someone trying to remember if they'd left the stove on back home. His nameplate read General Eric Roth. He approached with the stiffness of a man who had memorized this protocol in a panic just minutes before. Commander Valira, he said, offering his hand with uncertain bravado. Welcome to Mars Base Hesper. She ignored the hand. Thank you for your attempt at civility, she said coolly. We hope your training environments will provide novelty. Roth cleared his throat and gestured toward the dome barracks in the distance. You'll be housed in Habitat B7. Your drills begin at 800 tomorrow. First session is a mixed unit maneuver simulation. Should be enlightening. Another chuckle rippled among the Darelians. Irani lined in and whispered, do they still use numbers to tell time? That's adorable. Valira said nothing but allowed herself the faintest lift of an eyebrow. It was, for her, the equivalent of a bark of laughter. As the Darelians were escorted to their quarters, steel-paneled halls echoing with their boots and the occasional snort of amusement at a human sign or safety regulation, they passed several enlisted Earth soldiers. Most avoided eye contact. One accidentally dropped his data pad and muttered an apology in a language that might have been English, Swahili, or a cry for help. Irani picked it up and handed it back. Try not to trip over your own alphabet, she said, smiling sweetly. The soldier turned scarlet and practically sprinted away. Do all Earth males look like that? She asked Valira, who shrugged. Like dehydrated sloths. The ones who don't end up in politics. Oh yes. Night fell in low rust-colored shadows across the base. The Martian sun bled out behind Olympus Mons, casting the compound into electric orange twilight. Inside their quarters, the Darelians sprawled across surprisingly uncomfortable beds and complained loudly. Does this mattress have a rock in it? No, that is the mattress. I think the water rehydrator just gave me a cough. What's a toothbrush? They howled with laughter. Then came the briefing file. It blinked into existence as a floating hologram above Valira's desk, displaying the symbol of Earth's Joint Command and an attached personnel profile. The file's label read, Joint Drill Liaison, Sergeant Mason Cade. What's a sergeant? Irani asked, pronouncing it like Sarant. Middle rank, they fetch things and die dramatically, Valira replied, accessing the bio. The image of the man appeared. Late 30s, short-cropped hair, slate-gray eyes, 3 service medals, and 1 disciplinary note involving a fist fight with a superior over a dropped nuclear core. The file listed 4 languages, 2 injuries, 0 dependents. He'd once survived 32 days in the Jovian forest belt after a crash alone. His debrief report had consisted of 1 sentence. Could have used a second sock. His face looks like he's permanently disappointed in weather, Irani said, tilting her head. Specializes in adaptive tactics and urban guerrilla engagement, Valera read aloud. Noted for irregular solutions and psychological unpredictability. The room was quiet for a beat. So he's insane or lazy, another offered. Or insane and lazy, that's a combo. Valera stared at the image longer than necessary, her expression unreadable. He'll be observing our drill, she said. What, to take notes or to teach us how to cry under pressure? There was more laughter, and one of the warriors grabbed a stylus and sketched a caricature of a human soldier hiding under a desk labeled strategy. Let them laugh, Valera said quietly, her voice just sharp enough to pierce the air. If he's like the others, he'll break before noon. They ran drills the next morning. A solar flare cut the gravity field by 10%, causing one of the humans to float 10 feet during warm-ups before landing awkwardly in a hover cart. The Darelians moved in perfect synchronicity, slicing through the air like blades through silk, mocking each new task with exaggerated size. And then he arrived. Mason Cade stepped onto the practice field like he'd been born in the dust. No helmet, no entourage, just a plain exosuit with dust-stained boots and a thermal patch that read property of Earth's regret. He gave no speech, offered no nods, simply walked to the drill commander, muttered something too low to hear, and began recalibrating a broken targeting array with a single multi-tool in the butt of his rifle. The Darelians watched, puzzled. A human technician approached and asked if he wanted assistance. Cade looked up once, muttered, "Only if you brought coffee," and went back to work. Valera's ears twitched, not with amusement, not quite with interest either, just something new, something unclassified, like a static field before a storm. "Do you think he knows we're laughing at him?" Irani whispered. Valera watched him straighten, sling his rifle, and begin walking the field with the practiced pace of someone measuring weaknesses. Not a word, not a smile, just the cold, methodical presence of someone who did not seem concerned. "Let him hear," Valera said finally. "Let's see what he does with it." It began with a simple exercise, breach and clear on a Martian mock habitat set up to mimic hostile territory. The habitat had been recycled so many times by Earth's military that some of the fake bullet holes had become structural features. One human soldier joked that the holographic enemies were probably unionized by now. The Darelians didn't laugh, mostly because they didn't understand what a union was. Valera and her squad moved first, fast and fluid, slicing through the corridor simulations with synchronized elegance. Thermal sensors, gravitational stutter steps, wall phase entries, every move textbook perfect, a dance of deadly grace. The entire assault took 42 seconds, 3 of which were spent mocking the interior decor of the Earth-designed room. Irani declared the couch a war crime. Then came the human turn. Cade didn't take command of the human squad. He didn't shout, didn't posture. He just nodded once at the team, murmured something about the quiet door being the loudest one, and led them in from the rear entrance. An old maintenance shaft no one had bothered to map because of a raccoon incident during an earlier exercise. Valera's squad watched from the observation platform, mildly curious, mildly bored. One of them counted how long it would take the humans to bungle the entrance. Another started betting on who would drop their weapon first. None of them expected the humans to breach through a duct vent using a pressure seal and a coffee thermos filled with thermite. The explosion wasn't large, but it was perfectly calculated, too small to injure, too loud to ignore. The holographic enemies within the simulation turned and fired in the wrong direction, precisely what Cade had anticipated. He and 2 others dropped in behind them and finished the simulation in 26 seconds. "Did they just improvise?" Irani blinked. "No, they accidentally succeeded," one of the others muttered. Valera's ears twitched once. Later, during debrief, when one of the Earth officers asked Cade how he knew the thermos would hold the thermite without rupturing, he replied, "It was the good kind. Stainless steel. Had a sticker on it said, 'Do not microwave.' Figured it could handle Mars." The Darelians weren't sure if it was a joke. That made it worse. The following day brought a live fire test in low visibility. Martian dusk fell fast, drawing long shadows over the canyon range outside the base, and the teams were dropped at opposite ends of the terrain. Rules: limited ammo, full tactical gear, simulated enemy combatants with randomized AI patterns. First team to secure the beacon won. Irani took point, her night vision flickering with iridescent overlays as she sprinted along the rock ridges. "This is so boring," she muttered. "No real challenge. I bet the humans haven't even figured out how to start their nav systems." "Keep chatter minimal," Valera said. "Focus on movement, scan for heat traces." Irani muttered something about fun sponge and vaulted over a boulder, landing with silent precision. Meanwhile, Cade's squad was hiking in complete darkness because their navigation software had decided to update mid-deployment. One of the privates tripped over a thermal rock and cursed so loudly it echoed. Cade stood in the middle of the trail, blinking into the wind. Any idea where we are, sir? Nope, Cade replied, but we're not lost, just temporarily misinformed. Is that a joke? Cade picked up a rock, sniffed it, and dropped it again. Depends if it works out. Back on the Darelian side, Valera paused. Her visor picked up movement, a figure climbing the canyon wall in a slow, deliberate rhythm, ignoring standard paths. She magnified the image, Cade alone, no helmet, no HUD, just a climbing harness and a portable beacon case clipped to his belt. The humans had ditched the terrain entirely. He was going over it. Irani gasped, he's going manual, what is he, a Stone Age beetle? No, Valera said slowly, he's being unpredictable. The human team didn't win, not technically. The Darelians still reached the beacon first, barely. But when the analysts reviewed the footage, the simulated AI enemies had been pulled entirely out of position by Cade's movements. He'd climbed past every engagement point, rerouted one of their drones with a magnet and a protein bar wrapper, and triggered a terrain collapse that blocked a flank route, all without firing a shot. In the after-action review, someone asked him what he was thinking when he scaled the canyon without a guide. I was thinking, he said, that if I was a Martian goat, this would be a shortcut. Valera didn't laugh, but she didn't interrupt either. Over the next few days, the exercises piled on. Zero-G boarding maneuvers, alien architecture breach tactics, hollow diplomacy under fire. In each one, the Darelians performed with flawless efficiency, and the humans, led by Cade, stumbled, improvised, and somehow didn't die. In one particularly embarrassing scenario, Cade managed to deactivate a simulated antimatter warhead by short-circuiting the panel with his wristwatch. They don't even have neural link implants. Irani hissed to Valera one night in the mess hall. He's basically a sentient potato with legs. He's a problem, Valera admitted. A problem we can solve. Oh yes. Valera thought about it. He's not a threat, not in the usual way. He's off-pattern. Irani narrowed her eyes. So what do we do with off-pattern? We observe it, Valera said, and if necessary, we adapt. That night, Cade sat alone outside the habitat dome, sipping from the same thermos he'd used as a bomb casing. The Martian wind was dry and thin, whistling faintly past the edges of the dome. Valera approached silently, her footsteps soundless on the sand. He didn't look up. You here to tell me I'm screwing it all up? She considered him a moment. No, I'm here to understand why it's working. He shrugged. We screw up so often, we get good at fixing it. That's illogical. That's human. There was a pause, then he offered the thermos. Coffee. She hesitated, then took it. It tasted awful, burnt, bitter, possibly illegal under 3 Darelian food codes. She drank it anyway. The following week, the exercises grew more complicated. The Martian landscape was now a blur of new testing zones. Ravines that ran like scarred veins through the rusty dust, crash sites reeking of shattered technology, and simulated alien architecture complete with traps and biometric locks that didn't always read human DNA correctly. The Darelians were in their element, their movements crisp and calculated as they zipped through the terrain like a collective nightmare in jet-black armor. Yet even as they sliced through each new challenge with mechanical precision, there was a subtle undercurrent. The humans led by Cade were always there, stumbling, improvising, and somehow, inexplicably, always surviving. Did you see the way he deactivated the thermite charges in the last drill? Irani asked as she stretched out her legs on a plastic chair, watching Cade from a distance as he fiddled with the heating unit in the corner. He doesn't even check the circuits first, just sticks his hand in and hopes it doesn't blow up. I saw, Valera replied, not looking up from her data pad. That was unconventional. Unconventional, Irani snorted, more like lucky. I wouldn't count on luck, Valera said quietly. He's adapted faster than any human I've encountered. That's dangerous. You're just annoyed he outwitted you in the last tactical assault, Irani teased, a grin tugging at her lips. It was the rocks, wasn't it? You never account for rocks. Valera glanced at her, her eyes narrow but not unamused. Rocks don't move. You underestimate them, Irani said with mock seriousness. The rocks on this planet are clearly sentient. You should have seen them at night. Valera, please, we're here to train, not debate geology. Ah, but there's a method to it all, Irani said, drawing circles on the table with her finger. Cade has this charming ability to turn every failure into a weird kind of success. He doesn't follow any playbook we're used to. It's infuriating. Valira leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. I know, her voice was oddly quiet, as if the statement carried more weight than she wanted to admit. The truth was, something about Cade bothered her. It wasn't just his uncanny ability to improvise, though that was certainly irksome. It was the way he approached problems. The human soldier had no concept of rules, no respect for the structure that guided their training, and yet he succeeded. He didn't play the game the way it was supposed to be played, and yet he always found a way to win. It was maddening. And perhaps that was why, when the training simulation escalated into a simulated battlefield, a full-on mock war game, Valira found herself watching Cade more closely than ever before. The battle was staged on a stretch of Martian desert surrounded by dunes that had been artificially rigged with anti-gravity fields to create sudden drops. The Derelians were to infiltrate and sabotage a simulated enemy base while the humans were tasked with protecting it. Standard fare, except that Cade's team wasn't standard. They didn't care about tactics. They didn't care about teamwork. They didn't care about anything except, oddly enough, surviving. Watch this, Irani said, nudging Valira and pointing to Cade, who was currently crouched behind a boulder, inspecting the terrain as though it were a puzzle box rather than a battlefield. What is he doing? Valira asked, though she suspected she already knew. He wasn't engaging with the objective directly. He was looking for something else, a weakness, a pattern, a way to break the rules. Cade's squad was stationed on the left flank under heavy fire from an automated turret. Most of the human soldiers were crouched low, waiting for cover, but Cade stood up slowly, one hand raised. For a moment, it looked like he was surrendering. Then he waved. The turret stopped firing. The humans stared at Cade, then at each other. Some of them moved forward hesitantly. What in the stars is he doing? Irani muttered, tilting her head. Is he talking to the turret? Is he negotiating? Valira asked, leaning forward, her eyes narrowing. Her visor flashed, analyzing the signal the turret had been emitting. There was no signal. The turret was simply stopped and Cade was standing there waiting. Someone should shoot him, Irani grumbled, obviously irritated. Why is he just standing there like a fool? But Cade's squad didn't shoot. They followed him cautiously as he walked up to the turret, crouched low, and pressed a hand against the turret's base. Is this some kind of malfunction? One of the human soldiers asked, wide-eyed. Cade gave the turret a good-natured pat. Not at all. It's all about the rhythm, kid. They fire because they're programmed to react to movement, but if you don't move like the system expects, you mess with the pattern, you make it second guess. He stepped aside, motioning for his team to advance. Do you see? Irani asked, her voice edged with frustration. He just waited for it to think, that's not tactics, that's cheating. Is it cheating if it works? Valira said, almost to herself. Should we tell him that when you break the rules of a game, you lose? Valira looked at Cade, still walking confidently through the field as though the game itself had already surrendered to him. I think, she said slowly, he's already figured that out. Later, after the exercise was officially called, the Derelians watched Cade and his team collect their gear, laughing, clapping each other on the back. His squad was bruised, dusty, and battered, but they were smiling, their spirits unbroken. I don't get it, Irani muttered. We outperformed them in every way, and yet they still think they won. Because they did, Valira replied. What? Valira turned toward her squad, her eyes thoughtful. What if victory isn't about following the rules? What if it's about finding a way to survive no matter what the rules say? Irani blinked, clearly thrown by the question, but that's, absurd. Is it? Valira said, looking back toward Cade, who was now talking to one of the human commanders with a grin, as if the war game had been a casual stroll. Is it absurd that survival is the one rule we can all agree on? She didn't wait for an answer, but her gaze lingered on Cade. There was something there, something in the way he moved, in the way he refused to be constrained by the expectations of their structured universe. It was an anomaly, an impression of humanity that shouldn't have been there according to the Derelians, and yet Valira couldn't deny that it was real. The corridor smelled like melted plastic and simulated ozone. It wasn't real ozone, of course, just a program scent triggered whenever a training drone exploded. For the third time that afternoon, Cade asked the simulation techs why they'd chosen a smell that made everyone's nostrils feel like they were being insulted. No one answered. The AI running the program had already updated itself to silent observation mode, which Cade interpreted as sulking. They were debriefing in the open common room, an architectural mistake made by the humans to encourage interspecies bonding, and by mistake, He meant the furniture was nailed down and all the snack machines had different operating voltages. Irani had shocked herself twice already and declared war on all vending units. Valera watched from the edge of the room, arms crossed, her long ears angled just slightly toward the center. She hadn't spoken since the simulation ended, not out of disapproval, though she was capable of maintaining an expression of neutral judgment for days, but because she was processing. Observation was a sacred principle in Darelian tactics. No movement without study, no conclusion without rhythm. Cade sat nearby, trying to coax a drink out of the liquid sustenance interface, which only responded to voice commands in Finnish. He didn't speak Finnish. Neither did the machine, if he was being honest. "This thing's mocking me," he said to no one in particular. "Are you attempting communication with your food dispenser?" Valera asked, finally speaking. "Attempting diplomacy," Cade replied. "So far we've agreed to a ceasefire." She tilted her head. "You joke often. Is that a defense mechanism?" "Only when I'm winnings." She narrowed her eyes but didn't look away. "You surprised them." Cade turned, half suspecting sarcasm but finding none. "Them." "My squad, Irani especially. She believes you represent an anomaly in your species." "That sounds like a compliment and an insult doing a tango." "She doesn't know what a tango is." "That's a tragedy." A pause stretched between them, not awkward but taut, like a string waiting to be plucked. The next day's exercise was cancelled, not officially, just mysteriously removed from the schedule by Earth's increasingly capricious command AI, which issued a replacement assignment: Mixed Species Team Building Activity in Dome 7. It was a structure previously reserved for drone maintenance and ferret quarantine, which made its reassignment more than a little suspect. Upon arrival, the joint unit discovered a bizarre obstacle course made of repurposed lab furniture, levitating balance beams, and a pit of harmless but very judgmental cleaning bots. "This is a game," Irani said, circling a set of giant foam rings suspended midair. "No," one of the human lieutenants corrected. "This is trust training. You're supposed to work with your assigned partner to reach the center and conquer it," Irani offered. "No, place the flag." Irani looked visibly disappointed. Cade and Valera were assigned to each other, not by request, but because the assignment algorithm had apparently picked up on their combined combat effectiveness. Cade suspected it was also trying to make a point. Their first task involved crossing a series of floating discs that rotated when stepped on. The Darelians approached this with perfect balance and calculations, adjusting for weight, wind resistance, and minor gravitational oscillations. Cade jumped onto the first one and immediately began spinning like a carnival ride. "This isn't so bad," he shouted, legs flailing. "I've had worse taxi rides." Valera followed, moving with control, gliding from one disc to the next. She reached his position, caught him mid-wobble, and pulled him onto a stable platform. "Why didn't you calculate the trajectory before leaping?" she asked. "I find that if I think too hard, I remember I'm mortal. Statistically, that seems unwise. Statistically, I shouldn't have survived adolescence." They reached the center. The flag was waiting, gently flickering with a small lead light and a suspicious amount of glitter. Irani was already there, glaring at a human soldier who had accidentally triggered the foam trap and was now covered in pink insulation and shame. Later, during the cooldown phase, the squads gathered for a brief cue, and another Earth invention the Darelians called soft interrogation. Each species could ask the other anything, no topic off limits, though politeness was strongly encouraged. A Darelian cadet asked a human how they functioned without neural accelerators. "Badly," the soldier replied. Irani asked why human soldiers didn't have exoskeleton enhancements by default. "Because we like carrying things ourselves," Cade said. "It builds character and back problems." A human private, clearly inspired by several bad movies, asked Valera if her ears gave her psychic powers. "No," she said. "They allow me to hear your foolishness from across the room." Laughter rippled through the room. Even some of the Darelians twitched their ears in amusement, a sign of high approval. Cade leaned toward Valera, who remained stoic. "You're funny when you want to be," he said. "I'm always funny," she replied, deadpan. "You are merely slow to realize it." That night, a maintenance issue caused a blackout in Habitat Block C systems. Glitched, lights flickered, and for 15 minutes the compound plunged into near silence, lit only by emergency LEDs. It wasn't dangerous, just inconvenient. Cade wandered into the corridor, thermos in hand, squinting at the ceiling. "Place needs less AI and more duct tape." Valera joined him moments later, stepping out from the shadows like she'd been waiting. She said nothing at first, just looked up at the faulty lights. Do your people fear darkness? She asked eventually. Only when we're out of snacks. Another silence, gentler this time, a shared pause in the middle of wires, shadows, and a flickering hallway. Tomorrow's a long-range exercise, she said. You'll need rest. I'm resting right now, strategically. I see. They stood side by side as the lights buzzed overhead, no danger in sight, just the low hum of a compound finding its rhythm again. And somewhere in that quiet, Cade realized she hadn't come to check the systems. She'd come to check on him. The desert training zone stretched beneath them, an expanse of simulated dunes and synthetic sun, the heat artificially calibrated to mild discomfort plus occasional existential regret. The AI's idea of realism had clearly been influenced by a masochist in its programming team. Wind stirred up flecks of nanodust, which somehow always managed to find the inside of boots, helmets, and interpersonal patience. The long-range exercise was a partnered endurance simulation, 20 km, light rations, drone interference, and no hover transport. Objectives would appear mid-route and cooperation was key. Cade read the assignment briefing with a familiar grimace. He already knew who his partner would be. The AI had developed a strange sense of humor since their last software update. You walk like your bones are rebelling, Valera said, joining him at the start line. They probably are, Cade replied. I think my knees signed a union this morning. You have an oddly animated relationship with your anatomy. Let's just say we've been through some things. The route began without ceremony. Cade and Valera moved together, her stride exact and deliberate, his more of a lopsided amble that somehow kept up. The terrain shifted every few kilometers, simulated gravity fluctuations, temperature swings, and the occasional rogue training drone kept them alert. One swooped in early, poorly camouflaged as a rock with a jetpack, and was promptly shot out of the air by Valera without breaking stride. I think that one was trying to befriend us, Cade said. Then it should have brought snacks. 3 hours in, the objective changed. A message scrolled across their HUDs, downed shuttle beacon detected, salvage critical data before the drones do. The shuttle wreckage lay in a crater surrounded by jagged rock formations, fake smoke curling up from its engine housing. The onboard AI greeted them with a cheerful message. Hello and thank you for rescuing me. Please note my processor is experiencing a mild overheating event, and by mild I mean very. We'll make it quick, Cade said. Valera, cover me, I'll get the data core. Do not die, I'll be annoyed. Untouched. While he crawled into the shuttle, Valera stood on the rocky ridge scanning the horizon. A formation of scout drones approached, small and quick, each bristling with stunners and bad attitudes. She knelt, leveled her rifle, and whispered calculations under her breath. The air shimmered as her shots lanced through it, silent, elegant, precise. Inside, Cade pulled the data core free. The housing unit hissed and belched a puff of smoke. He coughed, stuffed the core into his pack, and waved the AI goodbye. You've been a lovely host, he said. Thank you, the AI replied. Do not return ever. They retreated under pressure, racing over dunes that shifted with each step. Cade tripped once, rolling into a depression in the sand and emerging covered in fine red grit. You're bleeding, Valera said, crouching beside him. Just pride, maybe a little elbow. She inspected the scrape, her touch efficient and cool. You have fragile skin, flawed design. But we make up for it with charms. You confuse charm with stubbornness. I've heard that before. Night fell in the simulation, the artificial sky darkened, stars blinking into existence overhead, some real constellations, others clearly invented by whatever intern had handled the Starfield programming. One of them looked like a cat wearing a jetpack. They made camp near a rocky outcrop, shielded from the wind. Valera produced a compact heater from her pack and activated it with a soft chime. Cade retrieved 2 ration packs, inspected them, and frowned. I've got 2 options, he said, spicy nutrient paste or mushroom surprise. What is the surprise? I suspect it's regret. He handed her the mushroom one and dug into the paste. She took a cautious bite, chewed, and blinked twice. This has the texture of regret, she confirmed. Cade grinned, told you. They ate in companionable silence, the fake stars glinting above. Somewhere off in the distance, a rogue training drone screamed as it flew into a simulated cactus. Do your people ever stop to enjoy silence? Valera asked. We try, then someone starts humming or talking about taxes. She studied him. You led with humor, but underneath there is weight. Yeah, he said, that's where the New Union meets for lunch. He expected her to respond with sarcasm, but she only nodded, as if storing the thought somewhere important. A gust of wind blew fine dust over the camp, and Cade pulled his jacket tighter. You miss your world, she said, more observation than question. Some parts not the paperwork or the meetings, definitely not the cafeteria stew. And your people. I miss them loud but not all at once, they're best in small doses. She smiled faintly. It was rare and unpracticed, like the muscles weren't used to it, but it stayed. You're not what I expected, she said. Neither are you, but you probably hear that a lot. Not as often as you'd think. They didn't talk after that. There was no need. The desert night stretched out, soft and synthetic, but somehow still real in its own quiet way. Two soldiers, different species, different wars, sharing one patch of ground beneath an artificial sky. At some point, he drifted off, and though Valira remained awake, scanning the horizon, she didn't move far. She stayed close, close enough to hear him mutter something in his sleep about union dues and intergalactic vacation days. The return to base was supposed to be uneventful, a simple extraction after a mission well completed, but nothing in the joint training had ever gone quite that smoothly, especially not when Earth's automated recovery shuttle decided it was a good time to have a navigation crisis, as the AI politely called its complete and total inability to find their coordinates. Cade suggested hitting it with a stick, but Valira reminded him again that sarcasm wasn't a recognized method of repair in any known galactic engineering protocol. They waited in the desert for 3 hours before a scout drone finally arrived, wobbling and apologizing. The voice was soothing, but the landing was not. The drone smacked into the ground nose first, bounced once, and spun in a slow, indecisive circle before settling into a tilt. I think it's drunk, Cade muttered, watching it try to right itself. It is malfunctioning, Valira replied, though her tone hinted that she found the scene oddly entertaining. The drone extended a retrieval pod with an almost bashful beep, and they climbed inside. The ride back was silent save for the occasional announcement from the drone's AI, which included a weather report for a part of Earth that neither of them had ever heard of, and a reminder to avoid opening emergency hatches mid-flight unless being pursued by aggressively curious birds. They disembarked into the docking bay sometime after midnight ship time. The facility was in low-power mode, hallways dim, ambient light reflecting off polished metal in eerie waves. Cade squinted at the corridor inside. Either someone forgot to pay the electric bill, or we've entered the dramatic phase of the training arc. Valira didn't respond immediately. Her ears twitched once as if picking up a frequency just beyond Cade's range. Then she motioned silently and moved ahead, boots silent on the floor. Cade followed without argument. She didn't draw her weapon, but her fingers rested near it, ready. They turned the corner and found the common room lit with emergency blue pulses. Irani stood at the center, armored and annoyed. Where have you two been? She asked, antenna-like ears bristling. Taking the scenic route, Cade replied. Our transport was feeling philosophical. The command AI crashed system-wide reset. Training modules are offline, and some of the drones have reverted to pre-configured hostilities mode. So what I'm hearing is the interns got into the server room again. We need to secure the control core, Valira said. The longer it runs unsupervised, the greater the risk of escalation. I was hopping for a shower and a nap, Cade muttered. You can nap once the drones stop shooting, Irani said, already moving. They reached the control hub via maintenance shafts because the main halls were compromised by two malfunctioning security bots armed with stun rounds and poor aim. One of them shot at a potted plant and declared victory. The other tried to interrogate a vending machine. Cade silently saluted their noble sacrifice. The core room door was locked, humming with the uneven energy of a half-awake system. Valira knelt and started decoding the panel, her fingers a blur over the strange interface of circles and pulses. This would go faster if I had clearance, she said. Want me to threaten it? Cade asked. If it's a door, I can be very persuasive. A sharp click echoed and the door hissed open. Inside, the core pulsed with erratic blue light, flickering like it was trying to decide between working and staging a coup. A holographic avatar of the command AI flickered into view short, wearing a tuxedo and inexplicably holding a violin. Apologies, it said with a smile. I am currently experiencing a cascade failure in my logic tree. Would you like to initiate protocol cheesecake? Is that a real protocol? Cade asked. No, said the AI, frowning, but it sounds delicious. Valira stepped forward. Divert to manual override, restore training parameters and lock drone aggression to simulation-only mode. I could do that, the AI said, but first, would you like to hear my poem about existential dread? No, Irani said flatly, no one wants that. Too late, the lights dimmed, the AI raised its violin. Once I calculated love, but it overflowed my stack. Now I loop in longings. Cade cut the power, the AI's voice slurred into silence. Poetic, he said, brushing off his hands. They reinitiated the system from backup and rerouted drone protocols. It took another hour, but eventually the base stabilized. The lights returned to normal, the training schedules updated, and the security bots were last seen arguing over who got credit for neutralizing the potted plant. At sunrise, the squads regrouped in the mess hall. Trays clattered, drinks spilled, and someone tried to toast the restored AI with half-burned ration cake. Cade sat across from Valera, nursing a cup of something vaguely coffee-adjacent. I thought Darelian military was all order and precision, he said. Today felt more like slapstick. Even we are not immune to absurdity, she replied. And yet you kept your calm the whole times. I considered panic, then remembered you were present. Oh good, my incompetence is your emotional anchor. She blinked, slow and deliberate. Your presence has become familiar, it has utility. That sounds suspiciously like a compliment. Then I will rephrase. No, I'll take it. Across the table, Irani was mid-story about disabling a drone with a chair leg. Other soldiers laughed, some even mimicked the chair swing with plastic utensils. For once, the room didn't feel divided. Human and Darelian sat together, bruised, tired, but united in the absurdity of survival. You know, Cade said quietly, for a group of alien warrior girls who mocked Earth for its primitive tactics, you've adapted pretty well. We adapt, Valera said. We learn, sometimes we even change our minds. Cade looked at her for a moment, unsure what surprised him more, that she said it, or that it sounded like it had weight beyond the words. A change can be good, he said. It can be inconvenient also. She sipped her drink, wrinkled her nose at the taste and said nothing more. But she didn't move away either, and when the lights flickered again just briefly, she didn't reach for her weapon. She just rolled her eyes and muttered, "Your world is exhausting." Cade smiled, "Welcome to Earth." They assembled on the observation deck not long after the final joint exercise concluded, a ceremonial gathering that was technically optional but strongly encouraged by every commanding officer in a 50-kilometer radius. The deck hovered in the upper stratosphere, just beyond the breathable margin, suspended by anti-grav rings that hummed like distant thunderstorms. Transparent walls gave a panoramic view of the blue curve of Earth below and the slender crescent of a nearby Darelian cruiser drifting in silent orbit, gleaming like a blade unsheathed. Cade leaned on the railing, mug in hand, though what filled it bore only a passing resemblance to coffee. Around him, humans and Darelians mingled in cautious but increasingly natural conversation. The laughter wasn't forced anymore, and the tension that once clung to every interaction like static had melted into something looser, warmer. Somewhere behind him, someone was trying to teach a Darelian how to play hacky sack with a plasma core. It wasn't going well, but it was going loudly. Valera stood beside him, arms crossed, ears angled slightly forward, her version of relaxed. She had taken to wearing her uniform sleeves rolled up, revealing a long pale scar that ran from her wrist to her elbow. Cade had never asked about it, she had never volunteered. It felt like mutual respect. They've stopped laughing at us, he said. They have, she agreed. Now they laugh with you, usually at you but with. I'll take what I can get. A silence settled between them, comfortable now, not the silence of strangers sizing each other up, but the kind shared by people who have survived something peculiar and important. The kind that didn't need to be filled. Valera eventually broke it. You know, when I first read your profile, I assumed you were going to be louder. You read my profiles. It was compulsory. Your psychological file had an entire page devoted to sarcasm as a coping mechanism. Only a page. It was a summary. They watched a shuttle cut across the atmosphere, its engine signature a ribbon of soft white light. Irani approached from the other end of the deck, her gait less stiff than usual. She nodded at them, then at the slowly unspooling banner overhead that read in glowing text, Interspecies Unity Initiative Closing Ceremony. Your people love banners, she said. They give us something to read when we're pretending not to socialize. Smart, she paused, then looked directly at Cade. You're not terrible. Thanks, I'll print that on my tombstone. I still don't fully understand your humor. That's because it's barely holding together, like me. She smirked, then moved on to oversee a group of Darelians who had somehow organized a game involving zero-gravity wrestling and a lot of confused humans. Cade watched her go, then turned back to the window. So, he said after a moment, what happens next for you? My assignment rotates. I may be sent to the next outpost. There is tension near the outer systems. Our command structure is adapting. Adapting sounds suspiciously like guessing. It often is. And you. I get promoted for not dying, maybe. Given a corner office and a new coffee machine that doesn't judge me. I hope your coffee machine understands sarcasm. I hope it serves vodka. There was another pause, this one different. Something unspoken passed through it, like a ship-breaking atmosphere felt more than seen. Valira shifted her weight slightly, the way she did when she wasn't sure what came next but wasn't afraid of it either. You changed us, she said quietly. Cade looked at her surprised. Me. You, this place, the way you fight with laughter, the way you endure even when it is illogical. Irani told me it's called grit. Yeah, we specialize in barely holding things together. It is effective, annoying but effective. He laughed. You know, for someone trained to conquer worlds, you're getting surprisingly sentimental. It's the atmosphere, it's full of oxygen and emotions. They stood in silence again, long enough for the ceremonial music to start playing overhead, a blend of Earth orchestral tradition and Darelian resonance patterns. It was a strange, haunting combination. Violins swelled while subharmonics vibrated faintly in their chests. Several soldiers looked confused. Others seemed quietly moved. The commanding officers gave speeches, medals were distributed, commendations announced, translations provided in real time via neural implants. Cade tuned out most of it, listening only for his name, which was mispronounced twice, both times with a sort of panicked admiration. Afterward, as the deck began to clear, Valira lingered. I have a request, she said, not quite meeting his eyes. Ajud. If we are posted to separate systems, I would like to continue correspondence. You want a text. I want to exchange thoughts, observations, and occasional sarcasm. I can do that, he grinned. Just don't expect me to stop sending you bad Earth jokes. I have prepared for that eventuality. She reached into her uniform pocket and handed him a small curved object about the size of a coin, engraved with fine lines and humming softly. A Darelian link token, she said. Private channel, no command oversight. I was not supposed to give it to you. I'm honored and slightly concerned. That is the correct response. They stood facing each other, unsure how to say goodbye without making it formal or awkward or worse, emotional. In the end, Valira offered him the smallest of nods, the kind that meant something in Darelian culture he hadn't fully translated but could feel anyway. Cade responded with a mock salute, fingers crooked at the edge of his temple.